right now, without realizing it, your body has probably already copied someone else's. Think back to your last real conversation. Maybe you crossed your arms a few seconds after the other person did. Maybe you leaned forward when they leaned forward, or rested your chin on your hand right after they rested theirs. Maybe you started talking a little faster, or a little slower, to match their rhythm without ever deciding to. You didn't plan any of that. You probably didn't even notice it happening, and yet it happened anyway, the same way it happens in almost every conversation you've ever had. There's a name for this. Researchers call it the chameleon effect, and once you know it exists, you'll start catching yourself doing it constantly. Two friends at a coffee shop, both leaning on the table with the same elbow. A group of co-workers in a meeting crossing and uncrossing their legs in near unison. A couple walking down the street, falling into the exact same stride without either of them speaking a word about it. For a long time, this kind of unconscious copying was treated as a curiosity, a small social tick, barely worth studying. Then, in 1999, two psychologists named Tanya Chartrand and John Bargh ran an experiment that changed how researchers thought about it entirely. In their study, participants sat in a room with another person who was secretly working with the researchers, having what looked like an ordinary conversation. But this other person had been instructed to perform small, specific movements during the conversation. In some sessions, they would shake their foot repeatedly. In others, they would rub their face with their hand every so often. The participants had no idea any of this was being tracked. They thought they were just having a casual chat. But when the researchers reviewed recordings afterward, the pattern was unmistakable. When the other person shook their foot, the participant's own foot shaking increased. When the other person rubbed their face, the participant rubbed their face more too. Nobody had asked them to do this. Nobody had even mentioned it. Their bodies simply started matching what they saw, automatically, in real time. What made this finding so striking wasn't just that mimicry happened. It was how invisible it was to the people doing it. Afterward, when asked directly whether they had noticed themselves copying the other person's movements, almost no one had any idea it had occurred. The behavior was running underneath their awareness the entire time, like a second conversation happening in parallel to the one they thought they were having. So why would your body do this without telling you? Part of the answer goes back further than conversation itself, to a discovery made in the early 1990s by a group of researchers in Parma, Italy, led by Giacomo Rizzolatti. While studying the brains of macaque monkeys, they found a particular set of neurons that fired not only when a monkey performed an action, like reaching for a piece of food, but also when the monkey simply watched another individual perform that same action. The neurons didn't seem to care whether the movement was the monkey's own or someone else's. They responded to both as though they were nearly the same event. These came to be known as mirror neurons, and similar systems have since been studied in the human brain as well. The exact role they play is still debated among researchers, but the basic pattern lines up strikingly well with what Chartrand and Bargh observed. Watching someone else's body do something appears to activate, at some level, the same circuitry your brain would use to do that thing yourself. Seeing becomes a kind of quiet rehearsal, and sometimes that rehearsal spills over into your actual muscles, and you find yourself shifting your weight, touching your face, or adjusting your posture to mirror the person across from you. Here's where it gets more interesting. Because this unconscious copying isn't just a side effect of being human, it appears to be doing something for you, socially, whether you intend it or not. In follow-up research building on the original chameleon effect study, Chartrand and Bargh found that when one person mimicked another's posture and mannerisms during an interaction, the person being mimicked rated the conversation as smoother and the other person as more likable, without being able to say why. They weren't told mimicry had occurred. They simply walked away with a vaguely warmer feeling about the interaction. Other researchers took this even further. In a study led by Rick Van Baren, waitresses in a restaurant were instructed to either repeat customers' orders back to them word for word, mimicking their exact phrasing, or to confirm orders using different words of their own. Customers whose words were mirrored back to them left significantly larger tips, even though most of them had no idea any kind of mimicry had taken place. A tiny, automatic-sounding behavior, repeating someone's own words back to them, was enough to shift how generous they felt toward a complete stranger. Put these findings together, and a strange picture emerges. Mimicry isn't just something that happens when you like someone, it's something that can make someone like you, even when neither of you is aware it's happening. Your body appears to be running a kind of social glue spreading operation, completely off the books, every time you talk to another person. And the effect runs in the other direction too. Studies have found that people who are deliberately prevented from mimicking another person, for example by holding a pen between their teeth in a way that limits facial movement, often report feeling less connected to that person afterward and have a harder time understanding their emotional state. Copying someone else's expressions and posture doesn't just signal that you're paying attention. It may actually be part of how you process what they're feeling in the first place. Mimic less, and you understand less. This also helps explain a strange feature of certain relationships. People who are close, who feel deeply in sync with each other, tend to mimic each other more than strangers do. Long-term couples and close friends fall into matching postures, vocal patterns, and even breathing rhythms more readily than people meeting for the first time. The synchrony isn't just a byproduct of the closeness. For some researchers, it may be part of what closeness actually is, expressed in the body before it's ever expressed in words. Now think about what this means for a lot of modern communication. When you're on a video call, much of this channel goes quiet. You can usually only see a small, flat, slightly delayed image of the other person's face and shoulders. Their foot shaking, their shifting weight, their full body posture, the things your nervous system is built to pick up on and quietly echo are mostly out of frame or invisible. Some researchers studying video call fatigue have pointed to this missing layer of mimicry and synchrony as one possible reason video calls can feel more draining and less satisfying than meeting in person. Even when the conversation itself covers exactly the same ground, your body is trying to run its usual social software, and half the inputs it normally relies on simply aren't there. Texting and messaging strip even more of this away. There's no posture to mirror, no foot to shake, no face to rub. What's left are emojis, punctuation, and response timing. A thin, conscious substitute for a process that in person your body would have handled automatically, instantly, and without you ever being aware it was happening at all. None of this means in-person conversation is the only kind that matters, or that digital communication is somehow broken. But it does mean that something real is missing when the screen replaces the room. Something that has nothing to do with words at all. The next time you're talking with someone you feel genuinely at ease with, try paying attention, just for a moment, to what your body is doing. Notice your posture, your hands, the rhythm of how you're sitting or standing. There's a good chance it already matches theirs, in some small way you never decided on and never noticed happening. It's not a coincidence, and it's not a habit you picked up on purpose. It's your body, quietly speaking a language older than the conversation itself, copying someone else without your permission, and somehow, in doing so, telling them you're on their side.